The world is getting more and more insane, while modern women are getting more and more heartless. Alexander Grace has made a great video about mothers and paternity fraud titled, "The Facts That Women Are Desperate to Keep Hidden." So let's jump into it. Don't forget to leave your thoughts and your comments.
What is this? That's a motherfucking DNA test. Why would you name our child Darius? It's not our child. It's not even our child. No, it's not my son.
Yes, you've been raising him for 3 years.
Yeah, I've been raising him, and you know that was somebody else's child.
All right.
There you go.
During the time that we had a break, it was one time.
One time.
All right. We were going through stuff, and that's it.
Oh, okay, one
So
time.
I didn't think anything of it.
So you just don't have me raising somebody else's kid. So we do.
One time.
Modern women will never understand this. There is no such thing as, oh, it was just one time. There isn't a strike system they can use to write off cheating. One time has been and will always be one time too many.
I know some people ask me why I talk about mandatory paternity testing at birth so often. They say, like, isn't it a fringe issue? Like, why do you keep going on about it? It's not that important. My perspective is that you could only feel that way if you didn't have all of the facts. I talk about it because it is important. And for me, it's the topic that killed my naivety. It's where I went from, oh, there might be some sexism against men that we didn't realize, to this is being done on purpose. Men are victims in this culture, and we exist in a system that has been set up to discriminate against men.
Mandatory DNA testing should not be a controversial issue. A man has every right to know whether or not he's the biological father of his own children. I don't even know why this is a debate, to be honest.
The two co-conspirators that have set this up are those that benefit from that discrimination: women and the government. For me, this is one of the issues I care the most about because it reveals so much. And if you want to believe that it's just a small issue, that it's negligible and it's safe to ignore it, I think that's foolish and even dangerous. Let me explain first that this affects so many more people than you realize. When they have conducted research as to how many paternity tests come back showing that the person who has been told they are the father is not the father, they tend to find that the man has been a victim of paternity fraud about half of the time.
What's really disturbing about this fact is about how even though there's a 50-50 chance that the man might not be the father of that child, that's still not reason enough to argue for mandatory paternity tests. That is how little these people actually care about men.
Some studies have it as high as 58%. Now, research like this does not reflect the general population because the data has been skewed, because you're not likely to ask for a paternity test unless you suspect that you have been lied to. So perhaps the more interesting question to ask is, of the general population, how many instances of paternity fraud are there? Just how widespread is this in society? In 2005, they did a meta-analysis of all of the studies that had been conducted to answer this question. And when placing it all together, they came up with a median figure of 3.7%, saying that 3.7 people out of 100 have been lied to about who their father was.
That's still too high, in all honesty. Not only are fathers finding out their spouses have been lying to them, but kids also find out that their mothers, the women who are supposed to love them unconditionally, were also lying to them about their fathers as well, and that is messed up.
More recent studies don't disprove that figure, but they also estimate that it might be a bit high. I personally think that there are a lot of vested interests that are trying to downplay how widespread of an issue this is, and I really wanted a solid figure, and I kept pushing and pushing with my research, and I couldn't find something exact, but there were very few studies that were lower than 2%. So for the purpose of this discussion, let's be really conservative. Let's just say it affects 2% of the population. And so you think, okay, that's no big deal. Like 2% is still pretty small, right?
Even 2% is far too high when you're dealing with the world's population, because that's still literally millions of men and children who have been lied to about their own families. That kind of carelessness really does cause massive problems for people for their entire lives, by the way.
Well, no, think of it like this. 2% of the population of the United States is 6.6 million. And again, remember that this is a conservative figure, but that estimation puts 6.6 million people who have been lied to about who their father is. 6.6 million people is huge. That's bigger than the population of the country of Denmark. But wait, because it gets even worse, because that 6.6 million, that's not just victimizing those children. What about the men who have been lied to and told that the child is theirs when it's not?
That idea is made even worse for men who live in states where they have laws written so that under certain technicalities, despite any DNA evidence, a man may still be financially responsible for a child even if the mother lied to him about him being the father.
Those men are absolutely victims of paternity fraud too. So we need to double the figure. It's not 6.6 million, it's now like 13 million. And what about that man's parents? The grandparents who've been falsely led to believe that this child is their genetic line. Think of the time that they spend on them, the inheritance that will come their way. And the aunts and the uncles and the cousins, it's all based on a lie. All of those people are victims as well. And all of that, and we haven't even spoken about the biological father, the man whose child it actually is, but he's never told that and he misses out on all those years, all of that relationship. And then that man's parents missing out on a grandchild and their extended family.
The problem is that nobody cares about those guys. If anything, the mothers will fight for the spotlight to complain about how hard it was to lie to countless people about the father of her own child and how she needs more support than the people around her.
Whatever figure we came up with before, we need to double it to account for all of those victims. In the United States alone, we are talking about tens of millions of people who are genuine victims of paternity fraud. And when we talk about this on a global, worldwide scale, it's even more alarming. And you would think with a scandal this big affecting this many people's lives that we would be hearing about this constantly. And yet there's silence. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself, why? Why is it that you hear nothing about this? The reason is because women and the government have teamed up to keep this quiet. If the scale of this issue truly comes to light, then both of those groups have so much to lose.
It's sad but true. There is an obscene amount of money to be made with crap like this, and so long as there's money to be made, the lengths these people will go to keep this under wraps goes pretty damn far.
A lot of women are against it, to no surprise whatsoever. A lot of them are saying that they would divorce their husband immediately if he asked them for a paternity test.
Women threatening to divorce their husbands if they want to get a paternity test. There's a lot of emotional blackmail going on to make sure that men keep quiet. And you might get some women who will say, well, of course I need to divorce him. How dare he imply I was unfaithful? This is so unfair on me as a woman.
You'd think that if the wife cared about her husband, she wouldn't be offended at getting a paternity test. If anything, she'd want to ease his mind and prove that he is the biological father so that they could move together as a family. But instead, we get this toxic crap aimed directly at men.
Even for a topic as important to men as this, you can find some women have this uncanny ability to make it about themselves. Let me be very clear. Paternity fraud is not a woman's issue. This is an issue for men. From a biological perspective, there is no bigger sucker than the man who raises another man's child. This goes so much beyond just getting cheated on. It is existential humiliation. This man has been lied to, he has been defrauded and manipulated emotionally in an unforgivably evil manner.
It's insane how callous people are when it comes to men's emotions, and it's come to the point where men's emotions are so invalid that modern women can play with them as much as she wants, just so long as she's getting what she wants out of the deal. It is ridiculous.
And you might think that women who occasionally have that heart-wrenching experience of an administrative mistake at a hospital and being sent home with a baby that's not theirs, knowing how difficult that would be to deal with, you might imagine that women could have some empathy for men in this situation. To sit and contemplate how it might actually feel to be a man, to raise a child, to love them, to give them your time, energy, and resources, all based on a lie. Could that not be a window for compassion and empathy for how serious this is for men?
It's a harsh truth about today's world. Empathy for any men's issues are in short supply because modern women are convinced that men deserve any and all forms of adversity that come their way, thanks to a backwards way of thinking that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
It makes me go through a paternity test to prove that it is his. You know what I'm doing after that? I'm thinking about who am I hiring as a divorce attorney because I'm not staying with that man.
We live in a world where modern women are encouraged to go online and celebrate whenever a man is suffering. There is no empathy to be had anymore because modern women don't view men as human beings a lot of the time, only as service providers.
Ladies, I know that this is a radical thought, but did you ever consider that this issue is not about you? There was a study done in Spain where they found that 25% of women would threaten divorce if their man asked for a DNA test. Can I remind you that for men who want to get a paternity test, 50% of the time they find out that they have been lied to? If a man is asking for a paternity test, there's probably a good reason, but there's no compassion or empathy forthcoming. It's just guilt and threats, like I'm going to divorce you.
That's not surprising at all, though. Modern women think that men were put on this earth to serve them. Men are supposed to blindly provide and protect, and any man who questions that must be seen as the enemy for reasons that they can't even coherently explain.
Just keep on upping the emotional ante to keep you quiet, to stop asking this question, to just drop it. And I understand that it would be an awkward conversation to say, I think I would like to get a DNA test on our child. But that's just another reason why we need mandatory paternity testing to be done at birth. Hospitals already perform a number of routine tests. There is no harm adding paternity to that list. Knowing without a shadow of a doubt who the paternal father is benefits everybody. Well, almost everybody. The only real victims would be the lying women. But my question is, who would want to protect them?
It is absolutely insane how we live in a world where men are disregarded so blatantly that the mere idea of confirming whether or not he's the biological father of his own children is so offensive that hospitals will refuse to do it in the name of government kickbacks.
There have been efforts recently to have paternity testing be linked to child support. There is a universal fight against it on the part of feminists.
Of course there is.
Who could object to this? On what possible basis of fairness and justice could you have a problem with that? How is it that feminists don't care about men who have been victims of paternity fraud? On the one hand, you have an individual who cheats on her partner and who lies about it. And on the other hand, you have a man who is the victim of that behavior and then is financially on the hook on the basis of her lies. And you're telling me that feminists are siding with this individual? Why? How can you justify that?
Never underestimate the power of a womanist's ability to demonize men, regardless of the context. They will support a cheating mother over the man because the man must have done something to drive her into the arms of another man, so he must be punished for her betrayal.
Modern feminism is just a bloated caricature of what it once was. Any veneer of egalitarianism or justice seems to have just been dropped. Let's call a spade a spade. It is openly a female supremacist movement. The reason why they don't care about men who are victims of paternity fraud is just because they are men. Apparently, it is a woman's right to just arbitrarily decide who the father is and then lie about the biological reality.
He's not that far off. Womanists believe that they should get a hall pass for pretty much everything because of things that happened hundreds, if not thousands of years ago. The amount of mileage they get out of bank accounts and credit cards alone is rather staggering.
You see lifestyle articles like this that talk about sperm burgling, like it's a lifestyle choice or like a fun, quirky life hack. In so many Western jurisdictions, not only is it not a crime to fraudulently take a man's sperm without his consent by lying about birth control, but on top of this theft and fraud, that man is also on the hook financially for child support for a child that he never even consented to create. She lies, and yet he is the one who is punished.
The fact that spurgle is a word to describe a woman who tricks a man into getting her pregnant is frustrating enough, but it's used so casually as if it's just a cute thing that women do. But it's not cute, it's deeply disturbing and incredibly unfair, by the way.
And sometimes it's not even just one man.
One child, 3 men, each paying child support in 3 separate states: New Jersey, Minnesota, and Maryland. She was getting $3,200 a month in total from them for over 6 years. Not 1, not 2, but 3 men investing emotionally and financially in a child they were told was theirs. This isn't just fraud, this is diabolical.
What makes this even worse is how that woman had absolutely no problem toying with the emotions of these men and using that to get them to pay her money that we can all safely assume wasn't even going to support that child.
Okay, so we already know that feminism doesn't care about male victims, but I also said at the beginning of this video that women had a co-conspirator in this with the government. The fact that women can cheat on men and then lie about it and exploit them, maybe that doesn't surprise you, but then ask the question, why does the government protect those women? Why does it go along with it? These women are doing something that is truly despicable, but why does our government enable it? It doesn't have to be this way. Imagine a different country, hypothetically, and in that country's laws, it's illegal to do this. Their justice system holds these women accountable. Women who commit this evil act could be sued or even jailed. That would seem fair, wouldn't it? Consequences for your actions?
The problem is that womanism isn't actually about fairness. It's about preferential treatment. It's about allowing a woman to be both empowered and a victim at the same time. And the strange part is there is a lot of money to be made out of both ends, especially when the government is involved.
So we can imagine hypothetically that such a jurisdiction would exist, but then what is going on in our own countries? Why are governments doing absolutely everything they can to punish the victims in these situations and protect the awful women who committed this heinous act? Are you the father of the child? It seems like a pretty straightforward black and white question that can be answered by science, right? No. Apparently not. Apparently it's really complicated. The United States and other countries have a legal precedent known as the marital presumption.
The irony is how a womanist will say that these laws aren't strict enough and how women have less reproductive rights than men, but that's practically impossible, and that's just because men have zero reproductive rights in the West. If we did, this spurgling thing would be a criminal offense.
I feel like a lot of people think that if you're proven not to be the father, that child support payments just stop and you go move on with your life or something. Oh, nay.
The emotional component of being lied to about this is awful enough, but it also has very serious financial implications.
Even if that man can prove that he's not the father, that doesn't stop his child support payments, but that's because if these women can't con good men out of their money, then these women would have no reliable source of income.
There was a man in Canada who was the victim of paternity fraud, and he spent years paying for another man's child. After he found out that he had been lied to, he naturally asked to be freed from the obligation to continue paying money. The answer from the legal system was a very clear no. The motion was dismissed. And this is not an isolated case. This reflects a precedent in jurisdictions around the world. In some countries, they go even further. Earlier this year, in India, they legalized adultery for women. The courts found that if you are named as the father, you are not allowed to ask for a paternity test. The only circumstances when they would grant you permission to do so is if you can conclusively prove that you were physically separated, as in geographically distant from your wife at the time that the conception had to have taken place.
You have to wonder how lawmakers were able to spin this idea that if a man cheats on his wife, it's because he's an evil pig, right? But if a woman cheats on her husband, then she must have had her reasons, and the law must be understanding and empathetic towards her.
Fun fact. Paternity tests, which are used to confirm a man is the biological father of his child, are illegal in France. And if a father is caught using a paternity test in France or in any other country, he could face up to a year in jail and a $16,000 fine.
This is 100% true. In France, you could face up to 1 year's imprisonment as a man if you seek a paternity test. With such strict laws, it really makes you wonder how much paternity fraud is going on in French society. And the claim is always, well, this is to protect children. This is in the best interest of the children. Bullshit.
The longer you keep a lie like this from your children, the more damage it's going to do to them. Children have a right to know who their parents are, and the law shouldn't have a say in that at all.
Daily reminder that the state gets reimbursed for a vast percentage of every child support made. So yeah, there's a big incentive to make any man pay.
Men make more money than women, especially when you consider the types of men that women will choose to have around long term. So forcing a man to pay child support for a kid that isn't his means that a lot of pockets get lined with his gold by the end of the day. They have absolutely no problem relentlessly destroying a man that they legitimately do not give a crap about. But anyway, guys, we're going to be leaving today's episode there. As always, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you are new here. Drop a comment, and I will see you all in the next one. Make sure you take care of yourselves. Peace.